This is the Math 104 sample exam, exam number 2. Number 1, find all solutions by factoring. To solve this quadratic equation, one side of the equal sign has to be 0. 2x squared plus 40 and we're going to subtract x squared and subtract 13x from both sides so that this side of the equal sign is 0. Combine like terms. 2x squared minus 1x squared is x squared. Minus 13x gets copied. The plus 40, we copy that. And equals 0, copy. We now factor the trinomial, x squared minus 13x plus 40. X squared is x times x. And 40, there's a lot of possibilities. So it's trial and error to come up with -8 times -5. -8 times -5 is positive 40. And checking outers and inners, x times -5 is -5x. -8 times x is -8x. -5x and -8x is -13x. That's a check. And because this says equals 0, we set each of these factors equal to 0. X minus 8 equals 0, or x minus 5 equals 0. Add 8 to both sides. X equals 8. Or add 5 to both sides. X equals 5. That's it. X equals 8 or x equals 5. Number 2 is the same kind of equation. It's a quadratic equation, so one side of the equal sign must be 0. We have to turn this into a 0, 4x into a 0 by subtracting 4x from both sides. Then we factor out the greatest common factor. 4x comes outside of x minus 1, because 4x times x is 4x squared, and 4x times -1 is -4x. Now we set each factor equal to 0. 4x equals 0, or x minus 1 equals 0. Divide both sides by 4. 0 divided by 4 is 0. Add 1 to both sides. 0 plus 1 is 1. X equals 0 or x equals 1. Number 3. A room has an area of 170 square feet. Here's a room. One dimension is 7 feet more than the other. Since the other is at the end of the sentence, I write let x equal the other. And this is talking about the other dimension. At the beginning of this sentence is the phrase one dimension. One dimension of this room is 7 feet more than the other. That means it's the other, which is up there, 7 feet more. One side of this rectangle or room is x, and one side is x plus 7. The area being 170 means the length times the width is the area. I said length times width, or I could say base times height. So when you take the actual exam, exam number 2, you will not have to solve the problem. You will only have to write the equation and then go on to the next question. So I'm not going to solve this, and you won't have to on the exam 2. Question 3. All right, question 4 is express the rational expression in lowest terms. To express a fraction in lowest terms, we factor, then we cancel. No canceling until factoring is done, and then we multiply anything that's left. Four x plus 2 can be factored because we can factor 2 outside of 2x plus 1. This is the same as 4x plus 2. And the denominator can be factored because 12, 22, and 8 are all even numbers. We can factor 2 out of 6x squared plus 11x plus 4, because this denominator is equal to that denominator. A distributive property. Well, now it's good to cancel these factors. We only cancel factors. We only cancel things that are multiplied. We never cancel things separated by plus or minus. And we're supposed to notice that 6x squared plus 11x plus 4 can be factored some more. 6x squared is 2x times 3x. And there's a few ways to get 4, or a couple ways, like 2 times 2, or 4 times 1, or 1 times 4. I'm going to put positive 1 times positive 4 here. And that is correct because 2x times 4, those are the outers, is 8x. And 1 times 3x is 3x. Combine these like terms, and we get 11x, which is what's here. The numerator is 2x plus 1. Technically, there's a 1 in front because when we crossed out these, 2 divided by 2 is, the crossing out is really dividing. 2 divided by 2 is 1. The final answer in lowest terms is 1 over 3x plus 4. Because 2x plus 1 divided by 2x plus 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is the numerator of our answer, and 1 times 3x plus 4 is the denominator of the answer. To perform the indicated operations, it's similar to the last question because we are going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to factor everything, then cancel factors, only cancel things that are multiplied, and then multiply anything that's not crossed out. Multiply what's left. The numerator is k squared, which is k times k. A 12 here at the end is positive 4 times positive 3. Check outers and inners to see that that's correct. The denominator, k squared, is k times k. And 15 is positive 5 times positive 3. Check outers and inners to make sure that's correct. This numerator, k squared plus 5k, has a common factor, k. We factor k out. K times k is k squared, and k times positive 5 is positive 5k. And there's one more denominator, K squared is K times K. And negative 24 is negative 6 times positive 4, which is correct because positive 4x minus 6x is negative 2x. Now that everything is factored, all the things across the top are multiplied. Everything on the bottom, all these things on the bottom are multiplied. Things that are multiplied are called factors, and we cancel factors. K plus 4 divided by K plus 4 is 1 over 1. K plus 3 divided by K plus 3 is 1 over 1. And K plus 5 divided by K plus 5 is 1 over 1. Now we multiply everything that's left over. I see 1 times K times 1 on top. On the bottom is 1 times K minus 6 times 1, which is K minus 6. K over K minus 6. We're done. Number 6 is division. That's a little fuzzy, but that's division. Division changes to multiplication by the reciprocal. I'm writing the reciprocal of the second fraction. The first fraction we write as is, not the reciprocal of the first fraction. This question 6 is now exactly like question 5. We factor 4 things and then cancel factors. The numerator, z squared is z times z. 40 is positive 8 times positive 5. Check outers and inners so you'll see why we used 8 and 5 and not any other way to get 40. The denominator, z squared is z times z. 64 is positive 8 times positive 8. Check outers and inners to see that you get 16z. Over here, this numerator, z squared is z times z. Negative 24 is positive 8 times negative 3. Check the outers and the inners. The final denominator has a common factor. Z is in both terms. So we put z outside of z plus 5. This is the same as z squared plus 5z. Z plus 8 divided by z plus 8 is 1 over 1. Z plus 5 divided by z plus 5 is 1 over 1. Z plus 8 divided by z plus 8 is 1 over 1. Multiply what's left. 1 times 1 times 1 times z minus 3 over 1 times 1 times z times 1. Z minus 3 over z is the answer. This is subtraction. These fractions have the same denominator. We write the numerator, 2x plus 2, minus the quantity other numerator, all over the common denominator. Then this negative gets distributed. It's understood to be negative 1 to distribute. So copy 2x plus 2. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1, all over the common denominator. Combine like terms. 2x minus 1x is 1x. 2 minus 1 is positive 1. And then notice that the denominator can be factored. X squared is x times x. And 5 is positive 5 times positive 1. And 1x plus 5x is 6x. Since the numerator is x plus 1, which really means x plus 1 times 1, we're going to say x plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is 1. And then multiply what's left. On top is 1 times 1. The denominator, x plus 5 times 1. The answer is 1 over x plus 5. These three fractions, we cannot add or subtract them until they all have the same denominator. We start by factoring each denominator. 6 over x plus 3 in factored form, plus 3 over, well, I'm going to come back to this middle fraction. This denominator is a sum of perfect cubes, which is always a binomial times a trinomial. The cube root of x cubed is x, which goes here. Cube root of positive 27 is positive 3. We write that there. X times what I write there has to be x cubed. So I erase the question mark and write x squared there. Positive 3 times what I write at the end over here has to be positive 27. So I'll write a positive 9 there. The middle term is the product of these two with the opposite sign. And whenever I factor a sum or a difference of perfect cubes, I always get a binomial and a trinomial that can't be factored anymore. So because I learned that this trinomial can't be factored, it happens to match the one that's over here. So I would just say this is as factored as this can get. Even though it's a trinomial, you might want to try to factor it. But it can't be factored because that can't be factored. So under this line plus, under this line minus, under this line. Under each line, I'm going to write the common denominator, which will include x plus 3, because x plus 3 appears here and here. But the common denominator will also include x squared minus 3x plus 9. Because that factor appears here and also here. The common denominator is x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. The common denominator is x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. On the top, we have what's already there. A 6, leave some space, a 3, and a 162. And now I'm going to compare this denominator in the original and this denominator. And looking at these two, I see what's missing is x squared minus 3x plus 9. So I have to write that on top. I now compare this denominator with this denominator. I look at these two and I see what's missing is x plus 3. I write that on the top. And when I compare these two, the red denominator and the black denominator, I see there's nothing missing. So I don't put anything on top with the 162. So the math is when I multiply the denominator of a fraction by something, I must multiply the numerator by the same thing. Same rule over here. If I multiply this denominator by x plus 3, I have to multiply the numerator by x plus 3. Well, now I'm going to write this numerator plus this numerator minus 162 all over the common denominator. And I can distribute the 6 and distribute the 3. So 6x squared minus 18x plus 54 plus 3x plus 9, distributing the 6, distributing the 3, and we have minus 162 all over the common denominator. We will now combine like terms. There's no other x squared term except the 6x squared. Negative 18x and 3x is negative 15x. And 54 plus 9 is 63. And 63 minus 162 is negative 99. And it's all over the common denominator. Now we are going to factor 3 out because 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 15 and 3 goes into 99. So we're going to factor out a 3. 3 times 2x squared minus 5x minus 33. That's still all over the common denominator. Then 2x squared minus 5x minus 33 can be factored because 2x times x is 2x squared, and negative 11 times positive 3 is negative 33. And the reason this is correct, besides what I just said, is outers 2x times positive 3 is positive 6x. And negative 11 times x is negative 11x. Negative 6x and negative 11x is negative 5x. That's a check because right there, negative 5x. And this is still all over the common denominator. X plus 3, x squared minus 3x plus 9. So the final answer is 6x minus 33 over x squared minus 3x plus 9. The way I got that is seeing that x plus 3 divided by x plus 3 is 1. So on the top is 3 times 2x minus 11, which is what I wrote there, times 1. In the bottom, the denominator is 1 times x squared minus 3x plus 9, which is what I wrote there. And this is the final answer. 6x minus 3 over x squared minus 3x plus 9. Number 10. This is a complex fraction, and the common denominator for this fraction and this fraction and this fraction is 12x. I write the common denominator times every term. So common denominator times 9 plus the common denominator times 3 over x. Then we have this division symbol, purple, copy that. Then underneath the purple, we're going to write the common denominator times x over 4, and then a plus the common denominator times 1 over 12. So we're just multiplying above the purple and below the purple by 12x. We're multiplying the numerator of this fraction by 12x and the denominator by the same thing. So that's something we're allowed to do. 12x times 9 is 108x. 12x times 9 is 108x. Then after the plus sign, we just have 36 because because x divided by x is 1. 12 times 3 is 36. 12x times x over 4 is 3x squared because 12 divided by 4 is 3. 3xx. That's what I wrote. And then after the plus sign, we just have x because 12 divided by 12 is 1. So we have x times 1 there. Then 108x plus 36. 36 goes into both of these. So 36 times 3x plus 1. 36 times 3x is 108x, and 36 times 1 is 36. In the denominator, x is common. X comes outside of 3x plus 1 because x times 3x is 3x squared, and x times 1 is x. Final answer is 36 over x. Because any thing divided by the same thing, as long as these are factors, is 1 over 1. 36 times 1 is the numerator, x times 1 is the denominator. Number 10 is an equation with some fractions where the least common denominator is this denominator, it's now in factored form, times this denominator. So we're going to multiply every term by the common denominator. We're going to take x minus 4 times x plus 4, multiply to the 18 over x minus 4. We can do this because we're going to multiply the other side of the equation by the same thing. X minus 4 times x plus 4 has to be multiplied to each term here, so the 1, and then plus x minus 4 times x plus 4 times that last fraction, 20 over x plus 4. So all we're doing here is multiplying both sides of the equal sign by this green. What's black, this fraction and the 1 and this fraction, are just what's given. So now the next equation will not have any fractions because we can do this and we can do this. So what's left is 18 times x plus 4 equals x minus 4 times x plus 4 is x squared minus 16 times 1. And then after the plus sign is 20 times x minus 4. That's after That's what's left after the canceling that I did in purple. Now we'll get rid of all the parentheses. 18 times x plus 18 times 4, which is 72, equals x squared minus 16, plus 20 times x is 20x, and 20 times negative 4 is negative 80. And this is a quadratic equation just like the first two questions on this test. Quadratic equation, so one side of the equal sign has to be 0. On this side, we have an x squared. I'm going to write 20x next. Negative 16 and negative 80 is negative 96. And this became a 0 because we're going to put 18x over here. It'll be minus 18x. And we're going to take plus 72 over here, so it'll be minus 72. 0 equals x squared. 20x minus 18x is positive 2x. And negative 96 and negative 72 is negative 168. And now, just like the first two questions on this test, we're going to factor. See x squared, so we're going to write x times x. And this is a challenge to think of two numbers you multiply to get 168. I'm going to try 14 times 12. Positive 14 times negative 12. So check with your calculator, make sure 14 times 12, make sure 14 times negative 12 is negative 168. Check outers and inners. X times negative 12 is outers. Positive 14 times x. Inners. Negative 12x and 14x is positive 2x. That's a check because that's what's there. So x plus 14 equals 0, or x minus 12 equals 0. Subtract 14 from both sides. Add 12 to both sides. So here's our final solution. X equals negative 14 or x equals 12. Number 11 is also an equation that has fractions. So we're going to factor every denominator. 2 times x plus 1 is the same as 2x plus 2. 4x plus 4 is the same as 4 times x plus 1. And x plus 1 is the same as x plus 1. Or I could say x plus 1 times 1 if I want to. So I see all the denominators in factored form. The least common denominator has to have a 4 because 2 goes into 4 and 4 goes into 4. And 1 goes into 4. But of course, x plus 1 has to be part of the common denominator also. So let's write 4x plus 1 times every term here. 4 times x plus 1 times the first fraction, x over 2 times x plus 1, equals 4 times x plus 1 times the second fraction, negative 2x over 4 times x plus 1, and then plus the common denominator times 2x minus 3 over x plus 1. So we're just copying the step above, but multiplying each of the given fractions by 4 times x plus 1. The next equation will have no fractions. This first term is just 2x because 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's where this came from. and x plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is 1. So all I see left here is 2 times 1 times x. Over here, this is just negative 2x. 4 divided by 4 is 1. X plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is 1. Negative 2x is still just there. Plus, this over here is 4 times 2x minus 3. Because x plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is 1. The 4 is still there, 4 times 1, and so is the 2x minus 3 in parentheses. Now we have 2x equals negative 2x plus 4 times 2x is 8x. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. This is not a quadratic equation. 2x equals 6x minus 12. We combine like terms. Negative 2x plus 8x is 6x. So 2x minus 6x equals negative 12. That's just moving this term over to that side, changing it from a positive 6x to a negative 6x. The negative 12 just gets brought down. 2x minus 6x is negative 4x. Copy all this. And now we're going to divide both sides by negative 4. That's it. X equals 3. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is positive 3. The last step to get from here to here was divide both sides by negative 4. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And this is the last problem. On this word problem, on the actual exam, you will not have to solve the problem. You will just have to write an equation. One maid can clean the house 3 times faster than another. Working together, they can clean the entire house in 3 hours. How long would it take the faster maid cleaning alone? In a problem involving work, like maids that are working, we're going to make a column for rate of work and a column for time worked together, if the maids are ever working together, and they are in this problem. And then the third column is for part of job done. So there's 2 maids. I'll just call them one maid and the other maid because they don't have names. When you do a problem like this, please, under rate of work, write 1 over something. It's always 1 over the time it takes to do the job. Also, if there's a working together situation, whatever you put in one of these spots, you must put in the other one. And then you'll always multiply these 2 things and put whatever you get when you multiply in that spot. And these 2 things will add up to 1. These are very predictable problems, work problems. So rate of work is always 1 over. And I can see that one maid can clean the house 3 times faster than the other. So one maid's rate of work is 1 over, I don't know how long, but I know the other one is going to be 3 times as long. I'm not sure which is which, but I know one is X and one is 3X for their rate of work. Fast is a word about rate. Working together, they can clean the entire house in 3 hours. Rate of work times time worked is always part of job done. This times this goes in this column. Rate of work times time worked equals part of job done. This times this goes in that spot. Also, these two fractions, when the job is done, those two fractions will add up to one completed job. Part done by one maid plus part done by the other maid will equal one completed job. So on the test today, you will see the words, you don't have to solve the equation, but just for practice, I'm going to solve this for you. You don't need to solve it on the test today or on the actual Unit 2 test. The common denominator is 3x. So we take the common denominator times the first term plus the common denominator times the next term. And don't forget, if we multiply one side of an equal sign by 3x, we have to multiply the other side by the same thing. The next equation won't have any fractions. 3x times 3 over x is just 9. Those x's cancel. Plus 3x times 3 over 3x is just 3. 3x's cancel. And 3x times 1 is 3x. So to get here, we just got rid of this and this. 3 times 3 is 9. And over here, we got rid of all of this and all of this. Just a 3 there. And there's nothing to get rid of here. There's no denominators. 3x times 1. 12 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the number under the 1 is how long it takes the maid. The rate of work is 1 over how long it takes to do the job. So one maid can do the job in 4 hours. And the other maid is the other denominator. 1 over is the rate. The denominator is how long it takes to do the job. So 3x is how long it takes the other maid. This is x. So the other maid, 3 times 4, the other maid takes 12 hours. And the question just asked how long would it take the faster maid. So getting it done in 4 hours is faster than taking 12 hours. So 4 hours answers the question. But when you have an exam, when you have this exam too, you can stop here.